Thank you, Margaret. Okay, we will start the class. Thank you for coming. Let us share the screen. What will we show? What will we show? Okay, we got this. Let's hold on, it's loading. Okay, get rid of this. All righty. So here we are today with our regular meditation class. We had a humdinger of a pre-Pesach class, as you know. A reminder that next Sunday we are off. It's the second day of Pesach, but we will resume in 2 weeks with our regular meditation class. Today, what are we going to do? We are going to study Dor Shav's second essay on the mind and his understanding of how the word lev, lamed vav, is used in Tanakh, as well as other sources throughout Yiddishkeit. And we're going to talk about another application of meditation in everyday life, focusing on postures. So let's start with a little bit of a review. We've covered a variety of meditation formats in the Torah lifestyle, most of which have been dropped to the wayside, and our mission is to recapture those and make them mainstream to the greatest extent possible. We are spending a lot of time on visualization because that is an extremely empowering form of meditation that people do all the time. It's one of those formats that we find ourselves doing naturally. And the goal is to get better and better at it and make it a very useful tool, an empowerment tool, a growth tool. Along those lines, we have pending a nice essay by Dr. Maxwell Maltz on what he calls awakening the success mechanism. But first, what we're doing is we're giving a Torah perspective on the mind so that when experts like Dr. Maltz and Stephen Siebold and Matt Fury, when they start talking about the mind, we'll have a good background in what the Torah says about that. So it'll be easier for us to relate to that. Okay. So how did we get into visualization so deeply? Remember, we started talking about what Rabbi Kaplan teaches about intimacy between a man and a woman. And he talks about how meditation actually can enhance the connection, but he didn't give a lot of details. So we're continuing our journey to get these details and find out how to do this and what it's all about. What is the experience like? He did reinforce this double-edged method of engraving and hewing to give us a taste of what visualization is like. Engraving meaning that in your mind you see a certain image, and to you it's engraved, which means it's permanent. It's really stuck in there. So with you understanding what the word engraving means, if you have an image engraved in your mind, then it has a sense of permanence. And he talked about the companion technique of hewing. Hewing is any extraneous stuff that doesn't have anything to do with that image that you're trying to focus on. You sweep it away, you chop it away, you wipe it away, whatever action you feel comfortable with. It helps you clear the screen so that all you're really left is this permanent image. That's a little exercise in being able to visualize. Okay. We went to other experts, including Bali Gill, who talked about energizing your vision. And the thing there is it's you have to feel what you're seeing. You have to get sensations. It's not just a visual thing, it's an energetic thing. So we started to build on that. We talked about in psycho-cybernetics about how when the top performers visualize, they actually, it has effect on their body. If they're throwing free throws or swinging a golf club, whatever it is, playing the piano, they visualize themselves doing it. It's an energized image, and their body responds. It's as if they're doing it in real life, and they actually improve their skill. That's the power of visualization. But there's a catch, and the catch was self-image, meaning that you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe it's possible. You have to think you're a really good golfer in order to visualize yourself as a great golfer. If you think, however, that you just stink, then you're going to be negating your own thoughts. You're going to be like, nah, I can't do it. So no matter how powerfully you try to visualize this, there's always going to be a little bit of a reluctance, and this inside you're going to be telling yourself, nah, that can't be me. So self-image is really critical as far as being able to visualize bigger and better things. You have to feel you're worthy, you deserve it, that it's you. So self-image management is critical. It's something we build and maintain like a house, like your apartment. You have to keep building and maintaining the self-image, just like you build and maintain the place where you live. Your self-image is the little place inside where you live, your impression of yourself. So you got to build that. Okay. Stephen Siebold reminded us that when we do this management inside, our outer world can change. Meaning that if you manage your self-image and you believe, yeah, I am worthy of bigger and better things, then in your outside life, bigger and better things can and will come your way. Kind of makes sense. Why? Because we know that if people walk around thinking, I don't deserve this, I don't deserve this, I don't deserve this, then the best things in the world can be dropping into their lap, and they'll be ignoring them because they don't believe in it. And we use as an example the biblical episode of the spies, and there was 12 spies, and two of them, Joshua and Caleb, said, yeah, this is a great place. 10 of them said, oh, this is, I don't know if we're up for this. This is going to be a tough battle. And Klal Yisrael said, yeah, you're right. Why bother? They didn't have a really strong image of themselves as worthy of redeeming the promised land. So God said, all right, you guys got to wait. You got to work on your self-image. And a lot of the work, a lot of the halachot and the teachings was all designed to give people, the Jews, an idea like, yeah, we're God's children. And how can you have a better image than that? So it took a bunch of years for 3 million people to develop that image. But yeah, that's what happened. Self-image was critical. And one real good way of looking at our experience in the midbar, in the desert, is saying, God taught us how to believe in ourselves and be worthy of this relationship we have of him. How do you like that? Okay. And we talked a little bit about how that relationship is really built on during Yom Kippur, where on the one hand, we go through all these confessions, all these videos. Yeah, we did this. Yeah, we did this. Yeah, we did this. Yeah, oh boy, are we messing up. And right after that, we're like, yeah, but we're good. We got your back, God. You got our back. We have a strong relationship. You believe in us. We believe in you. We can go forward and do better. Okay, that's part of the liturgy. The sages are so wise in incorporating that type of national self-development into the liturgy. Okay. Okay. Matt Fury reminds us that you got to be careful with that word visualization, because he tells us you have to feel, you have to feel, you have to feel it. And, this is hard work. It doesn't come naturally. It's meditation. You have to make a meditation out of visualization and get yourself to feel what you're thinking about, what you're desiring. You want it. And here you are doing it in your mind. Here you are doing it. Okay. And he's the one, by the way, who took over the Maxwell Maltz Psycho-Cybernetics Foundation, and he carries on the torch for self-image management and psycho-cybernetics in general. He's the heir of that. Well, I think he bought it, so he's now carrying the torch. Okay. Okay. And we bounced off a little bit of Maxwell Maltz with cybernetics, who mentioned, and this is kind of critical. He mentioned there's three ways that self-image is developed. One, and it's through the three ways are repetition, high impact experience, and authority. Meaning that if people if everybody around you is saying the same thing about you, you kind of internalize that. Oh, it must be very pretty. Oh, it must be very ugly. Okay. If somebody with authority says this, a parental figure or whatever it is, they say something about you, you internalize that. Or you have a crisis or a high impact incident and you walk away thinking you're a bum or thinking you're a hero. So similarly, those three factors can be deployed in rebuilding your self-image by reinforcing a more positive message repetitively, by going to a different authority figure who gives you an endorsement, and by proving certain things to yourself, having high impact experiences, climbing this, testing for that, proving yourself that you're tougher than you thought you were, and ratcheting up your mental toughness. Okay. That's real critical. That's what that's self-image management is all about. Use those three factors and you use them daily in different ways, and all of a sudden you start believing. Okay. Now, last week we introduced the teachings of Dor Shav regarding the word lev, which is commonly translated as heart, but doesn't refer to that cardiac organ in your chest. And we're calling upon him because he does really good research into how words are used in Tanakh and Yiddishkeit in general. And he's very good at explaining things in modern terms. He has a background in both Eastern and Western philosophy. So he's a good one to talk about this stuff. Okay. Last week, he made a very important point, and this is a summary of what he said. The title of it was The Core of a Unified Self, and this is what he said. Clearly, Lev is the discerning mind, a mind to know, a brilliant mind to conceive, a breadth of mind to grasp the universe. Nothing to do with the heart expanding and emotional delight. It's not all emotion. We mentioned last week, yes, in your mind, there are emotions. In your lave, there are emotions. But that's a small part of what's in there. There's all kind of cognitive stuff going on in there. Figuratively, then, as well as physically, lave means core, the mental center of our being. It is the inner screen upon which our cognition plays. In modern language, that can only be translated as the capitalized mind, the Cartesian opposite of the body, not to be mistaken with the colloquial opposite of the heart. This idea of mind is defined as the collective aspects of intellect and consciousness which are manifest in some combination of thought, perception, emotion, will, and imagination. All this stuff being in your mind. Thought, perception, emotion, will, and imagination. A rabbinic medrash lists over 50 things from seeing through loving to inscribing that this biblical mind is reported to do. Over 50 things which this mind is reported to do. So this is groundbreaking stuff, because what this is telling us is that when we, let's say when we meditate and we try to focus on our breath, where are we? Where are we? we're in our mind. We're sitting down, and we're inside of ourselves, and we're surrounded by all these thoughts, perceptions, emotions, will, and imaginations. All this stuff is happening in our mind. And you could see if we're positioned there, let's say we're sitting in a chair in our mind, it's up to us to say, okay, I want this, but I don't want that. I want this, but I don't want that. We're like at the traffic control center, and we're directing what we want to be projecting on that screen. We're in charge of the contents of the activity that's taking place in that mind. It's not just like anarchy. We're in charge of that. That's really strong stuff. That's exactly the point of what Fury says and Stephen Siebold says and Maxwell Maltz says. So biblically, we have reinforcement of the idea that our mind is full of all this stuff, and we have to be the ones to manage it. Okay. Let's go now to his second essay, part 2 of Lave. Okay. Part 2, Mind Your Idioms. In all of the following examples, the mistranslation of Lev as the figurative heart is replaced with mind, the core of our mental reality. So what he's doing is he's going through to verses in Tanakh in which the word Lev appears, and instead of the common mistranslation of heart, he's using the word mind, and you'll see what kind of sense it makes. I saved the juicier and more inspiring verses for next week, primarily concerning the connection between the biblical mind and revelation. That's for us in 2 weeks. We're going to go through part 3 in order to first cover some basic idiomatic ground. So here are the first 10 things that the biblical Lev knows how to do. So these are biblical verses describing what's going on in the mind. And I will give them a mind to know me. And I set my mind to know wisdom. And you could see the sources. Give your servant a perceptive mind to judge your people. Fools die mindless. It also means to remember. I will put my law within them, and on their mind I will inscribe it. Inscribe them on the tablet of your mind. The former things shall not be remembered, nor come to mind. It also means to think. If you look at Rodin's thinker below, where is that guy? There he is, the thinker. You can practically see the conversation that is going on inside of his mind. In the Bible, as in dictionary definitions, to speak in one's mind is indeed what it means to think, a verb that does not otherwise exist in ancient Hebrew. Right. It's, if you were to ask a biblical scholar, what's the word in biblical Hebrew to think? He's saying they would have to come up with some phrase that has to do with conversing inside your mind. We'd have to ask a biblical scholar about this. But right now I'm taking it as true. The idiom describes what linguists call inner speech. As for Hannah, she was speaking in her mind, only her lips were moving, but her voice was not heard. She was davening. That's how you daven. She was saying the words, and only she could hear it. And she's in her mind listening. She was praying to get pregnant. And before I had done speaking in my mind, behold, Rebekah came. And I will punish the men who say in their minds, the Lord will neither help nor harm. Ecclesiastes uses the same idiom for debating internally with philosophical ideas. Thus he said, let the words of my mouth and the thoughts of my mind be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord. That's really interesting because he's actually assuming that God knows what goes on in his mind. It also means to plan. This is what the artisans of the tabernacle had the wisdom and a great mind for. Likewise, many designs are in a man's mind. But yeah, in the Torah, it's called Ish Chacham Lev. A man is called with a wise heart. What do you mean a wise heart? He had wisdom. He knew how to build. The counsel of the Lord stands forever, what his mind designed for all generations. It also means to bear in mind, and he that bore not in mind the word of the Lord, bear in mind all the words which I testify among you this day. Similarly, we will not be on their mind. So again, these are translations of the word lev as it's used in all these verses. And you can see how, with our understanding of what the word mind means, there's a really nice fit using the translation of mind instead of heart, because heart is not physical. We're not talking about the cardiac organ, and we're not talking about emotional stuff. If you notice, all these translations, they're not emotional. We're not talking about emotions here. We're talking about cognitive functions. To be of one mind. All these came up with a made-up mind to Hebron to make King David over all Israel, and all the rest also of Israel were of one mind to make David king. To be of two minds, to be conned. They speak falsehood, every one with his neighbor, with flattering lip, and with two minds do they speak. And Jacob tricked the mind of Laban. So you could see how this common connection of the word heart with emotions does not do any kind of justice to how the word lev is really used biblically. It's mind, because of look at all these cognitive functions, all these mental capabilities that we're talking about here. To be dense, there are three biblical images for man's ignoble state of mind, where the mind is fat, uncircumcised, and stone-like. All three depict a mind that is obtuse and blocked from true perception. Their eyes are coated that they cannot see, and their minds that they cannot learn. Their minds become dense like fat, but I delighted in your instruction. Make the mind of this people thick, and make their ears heavy, and shut their eyes, lest they, seeing with their eyes and hearing with their ears, and discerning with their mind, return and be healed. Shear yourselves to the Lord and remove the circumscription of your minds. Shear the circumscription of your mind. The Lord your God will shear your mind and the mind of your descendants to love the Lord your God with a mindfulness and with all your life force so that you may live. To become a stone. When the wine was gone out of Nabal, and his wife had told him these things, his mind died. Ethan puts in blanked out within him, and he became as stone. Thus God promises the redeemed, I will remove the dead mind of stone from your body and give you a living mind of flesh. Let me just see if this is worthwhile. All right, that's not. All right, so what's the upshot? The upshot is that there are all kinds of cognitive functions. This is like the operating system. So again, our model is you're sitting there meditating. Where are you? You're sitting in your mind. Let's suppose you're sitting on a chair, so to speak, in your mind. And there's all these thoughts and imaginations and emotions and everything floating around. And we said a few minutes ago, your job is to control this mess and function. Here are these cognitive operations that we use to do this, to think, to remember, to know, to be of one mind, to be content. These are, if we apply these cognitive functions correctly with the right intent, with the right purpose, then we clear the mess, we function, we get stuff done. So you could see that when people like Maxwell Maltz start talking about using your success mechanism, what he's talking about is this whole set of cognitive functions which Tanakh, which God through Tanakh is telling us we've got. All these uses of the word lev, meaning mind, are telling us we have these sophisticated cognitive operations, a bunch of which entail emotions, but not all of them. A lot of them don't. And these are the tools. This is the operating system we deploy to manage what's going on in this crazy place and do what we got to do. So when we meditate, we are actually asserting control over everything here, establishing, I got this is my room. And in that meditative state, we can deploy anything we want. So when people like Kaplan, Kaplan talks about working on this math equation for 3 days. I mean, when you get guys like that doing this, he gets himself into a meditative state. He seizes control of what's going on in his mind, and he gets to work. He starts deploying cognitive operations. Okay, meditating helped him get to the point of control. And that's why Kaplan and everybody else says meditation means controlling the contents of your mind. You get to a point where you're in charge and you use all these functions for the good, for what your purpose is, whatever it is you want to do. That's what we're talking about here. All right, let's finish up with Bhante. What do we have here? Okay. Okay, postures. We are at a point where we're taking meditation into everyday life. That doesn't mean you leave the cushion. Seated meditation should still be a pillar, should be a foundation of what your meditation practice. But you've got to learn how to be mindful and meditate off the cushion or off the chair, wherever you're sitting. He gave us the idea of a walking meditation, and I'm sure everybody's been doing it 6 hours a day or 5. Now we have postures. What does he talk about postures? This is what he says. The goal of our practice is to become fully aware of all facets of our experience in an unbroken, moment-to-moment flow. We are mindful of everything that goes on. Much of what we do and experience is completely unconscious in the sense that we do it with little or no attention. We go through the motions. Our minds are on something else entirely. We spend most of our time running an automatic pilot, lost in the fog of daydreams and preoccupations, which is why when you go to the gym, You shouldn't be just walking on the treadmill, listening to music or the headphones, whatever it is, or watching that screen in front of you. You are disengaging your mind. You're not really experiencing what you're doing. It's a bad habit. And you'll get a lot less out of it. You get more out of it by being mindful and paying attention. One of the most frequently ignored aspects of our existence is our body. The Technicolor cartoon show inside our head is so alluring that we tend to remove all of our attention from the kinesthetic and tactile senses. This is people like me who's very kinesthetic. I'm always paying attention to what's going on. But a lot of people, if you're especially really cerebral, cognitive, you lose track of what your body's telling you. That information is pouring up the nerves and into the brain every second, but we have largely sealed it off from consciousness. It pours into the lower levels of the mind and it gets no further. Okay, here's an exercise to make the unconscious conscious. Your body goes through all kinds of contortions in the course of a single day. You sit and you stand, you walk and lie down, you bend, run, crawl, and sprawl. Meditation teachers urge you to become aware of this constantly ongoing dance. As you go through your day, spend a few seconds every few minutes to check your posture. Don't do it in a judgmental way. This is not an exercise to correct your posture or to improve your appearance. Sweep your attention down through the body and feel how you are holding it. This is what we do when we start meditation. We say, check your body. Start at the top of your head and check your body. And then we say, when you find a tense point, relax it. Okay. He's just talking about doing an inventory. Up, I'm tense here. Oh, I'm bent over this far. Up, up, up. Make a silent mental note of walking or sitting or lying down or standing or slouching. It all sounds absurdly simple, but don't slight this procedure. This is a powerful exercise. If you do it thoroughly, if you really instill this mental habit deeply, it can revolutionize your experience. It taps you into a whole new dimension of sensation, and you feel like a blind man whose sight has been restored. Why? It's because you're listening to what your body's telling you. Your body's not like this lifeless thing. Your body is like saying, hey, I'm bent over. And now you're listening to it. And eventually you can correct it. All those guys studying Gemara for 50 years and they're like this, if they had done this 50 years ago, they'd be like this. Seriously. It's because they never paid attention. And again, Bhante's talking about you're not correcting it all the time. You're just being mindful. Up, I'm doing this. Like when we sit down, we meditate. It's like up, there's me losing focus. Up, there's me returning focus. It's like, okay, there's me slouching. There's me straightening up. I'm not telling myself to straighten up, but up. My body's like, thank you. Now you realize what I'm doing. And you're mindful and you can automatically correct yourself if you want. But the point is, you're not doing this exercise to correct yourself or judge yourself. You're doing it to make yourself aware of what you're doing. Maybe you've been sitting on your foot the whole time and not even realize it's asleep. And now you realize, oh, now my foot's asleep because I've been sitting on it the wrong way. That's what he's talking about. Just as you're becoming more aware of the contents of your mind when you're meditating, you're becoming more aware of the contents of your body's experience by just paying attention to it. Simple attention. Okay. Having said that, let us meditate. Margaret.